Okay. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening for the second virtual session for ACES 2025. And just to remain on what happened in the first session, we talked about behind the curtains, investor and founder real talk. We looked at what is on the ground in terms of early stage investment in the continent, what is just noise and what is real, and just to look at the growing ecosystem. And today we are going to speak about switching lanes, evolving roles in the investment ecosystem. And conversation is so timely because we have seen so many individuals in the ecosystem change roles. We want to learn what made them to change roles from founder to funder, and with the deep expertise that they have gained, how are they making decisions being on both sides of the table? And first and foremost, I would like to mention that I am joining from Nairobi, Kenya. And it would be lovely to know where you're connecting from. And so maybe we can try and we can be with you virtually in that area. So feel free to put in the chat where you're joining us from. And also, please, you can introduce yourself so that we can learn about each other. You can give a brief description of what you do and where we can connect with you at. So I will take this opportunity to walk you through the agenda. First and foremost, before we get into the panel discussion, I would like to bring Yao to talk about the early bird tickets, and after that, we'll have the panel discussions, announcement, and closing. Yao, if you may you please speak to us about the early bird tickets?
Hi, thank you, June, Jason, Kirsten, Hughes, and Emmy. Looking forward to this session. My name is Yao Pipra. I work for VC4A and also, I guess, part of the organizing team for ACES 2025 that is happening in Cape Town at the end of the year. It starts the program itself, the main program is the 27th until the 28th of November, which is really trying to bring together ecosystem players in the early stage investor ecosystem to the Western Cape. It's for investors by investors, so largely peers talking to peers about how we can make things better, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and how we can fix and move forward to create a better ecosystem for everyone. This is a collaborative thing. It's not what VC4A and ABAN do on a full-time basis. It's really trying to see how we can be part of being better and being part of growing the ecosystem. So in that, I'm not going to take up too much time. We have launched our tickets. We've launched our tickets early this year because we want to give people time to think about what they want to do, because you do want to be in Cape Town at the end of the year, because I guess it's something that's really devolving into the Africa Investor Week. It starts maybe a little bit before us, but we have our events on the weekend before, the week after, where Super Returns starts, and there's Africa Arena, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things happening during that period of time. So if you're part of the ecosystem, we would love for you to be there. So the early bird tickets have been launched. I think they are ending at the end of August, but it's quite a significant discount. So please scan a QR code or go find us on the socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. We are there. We're trying our best to make sure that we deliver a great product for those that are in attendance. I will take up no more time, and I'll say thank you, June, and I'm looking forward to the session, Jason. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Yao. Please do not miss out, and would love to see you in Cape Town in
Love
person.
to.
Yeah, so that we can have coffee, we can have wine, and maybe we can be in a yacht somewhere talking about the investor ecosystem. So without further ado, I would
Or
like,
if, sorry, or even better, we'll be playing balls or padel. I mean, we've got a great program, so please do reach out to us. Thank you. Thanks for that, June.
yeah, thank you, Yao. So right now I will welcome Jason to lead us through this panel. And Jason, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, June. And yeah, exciting times ahead. And yeah, looking forward to another year in Cape Town. I think it's definitely a highlight on the calendar for most of us. But yeah, thank you. Maybe looking at today's conversation, I think this one's a personal one for me, having done something similar. But it's about, as you say, what happens when you switch lanes, when you move from one role in the ecosystem to another, and what that shift does to our perspectives, our priorities, and our purpose. And today, as you mentioned, we are joined by two incredible leaders who've actually made those transitions and are doing it to actively reshape how capital is raised on the continent. As mentioned, I'm Jason Delory, and thrilled to be the moderator for this session, not just to get the chance to ask the questions, but also to learn alongside you from two voices who have lived these shifts that we're seeing a lot more of in our industry with the changing environments. But as mentioned, I encourage you to share and participate as much as possible. So please feel free to pop your questions in the chat or raise your hand, and we can either ask them on your behalf or give you the space to ask in person. But always great when we can see the faces. So cameras on is always great, and please feel free to show questions in the chat. Without any further ado, though, I think the main spotlight for today is our two great guests. So, firstly, I'd like to introduce Kirsten Wilson. Kirsten is the managing partner of Innovate Africa Fund, deeply rooted in the African startup ecosystem, and many of you may know her already. She's changed lanes a few times, transitioning from angel investing and ecosystem building to managing an institutional fund. She's really been a rare mix of ecosystem empathy and investor discipline, making her uniquely qualified and positioned for this conversation. Great to have you with us, Kirsten. With her, we also have Emmy Van Helder, who is the CEO of Empower International, a founder turned funder who brings both lived experience and visionary leadership. She's actually a serial founder, which with building over seven, if I'm not mistaken, startups before launching Empower, a capital platform backing women-led impact-focused businesses. So really, really exciting, and she understands exactly what it's like to both pitch on the one side of the table, but also to fund on the other. So really exciting times, and really looking forward to hearing your perspectives and your experiences on this ever present topic of changes within our ecosystem.
Thanks.
So maybe to start, I can maybe give you some space to maybe give us a bit of perspective on your personal journeys with the major transitions you guys have experienced within your careers, and really focusing on what that shift has changed in terms of your perspective or what you see as your role in the ecosystem. So maybe I'll start with you, Emmy. Would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Yeah. I had a job once after my studies, and that didn't go too well. I must say, I was a little bit too opinionated for that whole thing. So after a few years, I had an idea, and my director didn't want to go for it. So I said, you know what, I'll try it myself. And at that point, wasn't called a startup. That's very long time ago. Okay. So the bank wouldn't loan me money. I didn't have money, but the bank then said, well, we will loan you the money if you want to buy a car. So I said, okay, I'll buy a car of 1,000 euros, and the rest I spent on the enterprise. And that's how I started my first company, which was a PC training company. And luckily enough, my first client was Philips. So that is a huge, was a huge stroke of luck. But on the other hand, it really made us stretch and jump, because we actually had no clue what we were doing, to tell you the truth. And 2 years later, somebody came and said, well, can I buy your business? And I went, okay, sure, why not? So that is actually how my journey started. I've started quite a few. I'm really a starter. I'm not a scale-up person at all. I'm very bad with processes. If you can all see my screen, the background's too big, it's the wrong way around, so that's me. But I can very well start a company. So after a while, I started to invest some money, and the first one is actually in a maternity wear store. Very, very strange. And over the last 15 years, I've more focused on Africa. Actually, everything I invest in has something to do with Africa, and mostly it's technology, but it could be something else. The strangest thing I've ever invested in was not too long ago, 2 years ago. I invested 1,300 euros into a toilet paper business, believe it or not, for a handicapped person in Stellenbosch, who now makes an actual living. And before that, he didn't. So, it's actually the one that's most fun. and it's definitely not the one that's going to make any money, but it's really cool. So that's for a short introduction. I live in The Hague, in Netherlands. I love being in Africa. So I'll be there at Investor Week, y'all. That's we're gonna have that glass of wine there.
Sounds perfect. And yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think a lot of people can empathize with that journey of taking the plunge when everybody's telling you to go left, entrepreneurs tend to go right. But yeah, indeed, great to get that context. And maybe over to you, Kirsten. Maybe just on understanding, your personal journey and some of the shifts that you've done in your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here with all of you and see some familiar names and faces. I actually started my work in research. So I was doing essentially like data and analysis and operations optimization support. And so my career started a little bit more like a consultant, an analyst, management consultant. And then I kind of realized that a bit like Emmy shared, I was very, very interested in entrepreneurship and very interested in helping businesses get off the ground. So I started supporting family businesses, supporting entrepreneurs. And then I also just, started to sink my teeth into some, program design and program management focused on SMEs and startups. And all the while doing this, I'd actually started investing while I was in uni. So angel investing had always sort of been for me about curiosity and about supporting, things that I wanted to see exist in the world. But I would say that I was very much, even though I was angel investing, I definitely was not part of any real ecosystem for a long time until I started doing that program design and program implementation work. But I sort of very quickly realized when I was doing that work that it also then felt too high level, and I wanted to do more granular work again. So I, at the time, set up a company that was set up like a partnership and designed to help, bring together consultants like myself, but also experts who had done different kinds of work, work with different companies on a more in-depth and long-term basis. And so what I would do would be take on sort of like, short-term CEO or CEO roles to like get things structured or organized. And then I decided mostly, I think because what we were seeing with that experience of what some of these companies needed around digital transformation, around access to data and access to resources, that I wanted to definitely build some simple tools, because when you, especially because I started my career as a researcher and a consultant, toolkits and tools are such a fundamental part of the work that we do. But I realized that for entrepreneurs and for builders, particularly on this part of the world, there just weren't that many toolkits and tools. So we basically started experimenting around building out those toolkits, building out that technology that companies could use. And so I was doing that for a little bit. And then right around, I want to say maybe 2020, 2021, 2022, I've been doing a lot of, so when I see a deal that I like, I typically bring my friends together and say, hey, let's, invest. And so at some point, coincidentally, we decided that we wanted to sort of form a proper club of it and have a more structured approach to the deals that we were doing. So we did join that club. We did set up that club, and I got my teeth a little bit into, just all of the structures and different things that you could do, SPVs and, fully fleshed fund structures. And, are you doing an SPV for the entire entity? Are you setting up a trust and so on and so forth? And I found that whole experience really enlightening. So I started to just get more involved in fellowships that would give me exposure to all of the different ways in which you could, set yourself up to deploy capital. So I did a couple of PE fellowships and a couple of VC fellowships, both with African entities and then entities in the US. And coming out of that, I then took on a role at We Capital, starting out doing more sort of special projects, and then scaling up into sort of portfolio support and supporting on pipeline sourcing, diligence, and all of that. So after doing that for a little bit, essentially folks that had been I'd been in contact with, that I had managed deals for and done work for, were really interested in setting up a fund and wanted me to kind of just bring my experience and my empathy to that particular endeavor, because like me, they were very, very interested in that very early stage of that company's life, and just getting things right from the beginning. It's kind of like with kids, right? Sure, if you can fix things down the line, but those first 5 years of a child's life are really crucial for everything, for brain development, for confidence, for mental health, for everything. So we were just really keen on saying, how do we support startups effectively in those early years so that they can become real companies that, generate value, that change people's lives, that shift and create jobs. And so that thus essentially became I mean, that's how I guess I became a fund manager. And that has been its own very interesting journey of, figuring out domiciliation, figuring out stakeholder engagement, and, all of the LP and allocator politics, but I would say, in terms of, just to come back to, I think, the crux of the question, which is like, why do this? I think fundamentally for me, it really is about, I genuinely believe that more than anything else that we can do, supporting entrepreneurs and visionaries to be able to realize sustainable and scaled companies is how we move the continent forward, because there's nothing, unfortunately, more powerful than the agency that capital gives you. And so the more people that we can give that, the better, I think.
Yeah, fully agree, and thanks for that. Great to understand a bit of that journey that you've been on, and quite how different the paths can be to getting to the positions that you are both in. But one thing that I think kind of underlies with both, and maybe it's even a prelude to the start of our conversation, is interesting that we're talking about switching lanes within the ecosystem, but even to get into the ecosystem, I think involves a bit of a shift in terms of, I think, either from the corporate world, like you were both mentioning, or even just the standard paths that we go down. So I think even our ecosystem is a bit of a shift, but which brings some challenges. I think you also get some pressures sometimes. I know I faced it personally, where you're leaving a fantastic corporate job and you're going into this very, very risky ecosystem, or whether you're a founder or on the other side. Maybe just, a point there. Emmy, did you face any kind of pushback when you first left, and like, how did you deal with that inflection point personally, when you were getting maybe advice that was telling you otherwise?
Yes, well, certainly people thought it was not such a great idea, but on the other hand, because it went incredibly fast, and we just got these crazy clients, so people said, oh, well, maybe she's right, so I didn't really feel a lot of pushback. And also, you're talking about ecosystem, but back in the day there was no ecosystem. Seriously, the whole ecosystem now is just amazing. So having organizations like this, and having angel networks, having investor weeks, etc., it's just great, because you really can help each other. And really, I mean, we're all on a different stage of the path, and we can all help each other very well. So the fact that there are these systems is just amazing to me, and it's really, really helpful. And yeah, the corporate environment just doesn't fit me very well, and I think people that know me understand that quite well.
Yeah, indeed. Interesting. And maybe, Kirsten, any pushback on your side when you first made the jump, or was it a smooth transition?
No, I think like as an African child, I'd already committed the cardinal sin of not going to, choosing not to go to medical school. So I don't think I could have done anything worse than that. I think once you do that, the path's kind of open. Yeah.
Great. But one of the things you actually mentioned, which I think is really interesting for the through line of our topic today, is empathy. That ability to empathize from one side firsthand. And I just wonder, how that with the design of the programs you spoke about, how that empathy for founders has changed how you assess the needs or even the opportunities and gaps that you see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, one of the first programs that I worked with, was essentially helping young people who had, graduated high school and wouldn't be able to, they weren't competitive enough for university to essentially acquire skills and, build some basic, sort of like sustenance businesses, right? That was one of the first programs I worked with. That was in the US. And then when I moved to Nigeria, I worked with She Leads Africa, basically on the founding team, and that was focused on really platforming female entrepreneurs. And like I mentioned, I did then go ahead to start my own business. But before then, I had big about media, which was telling the stories of these African businesses. So I think just all of those different experiences really gave me both like a bird's eye view as well as the granular view of what entrepreneurs were going through. I then had my own experiences trying to get a business off the ground, especially being a young entrepreneur, right? I think it's a little bit different when you have a lot of experience, or you have a big brand behind you, and you can do X Microsoft, X Google, X and so on and so forth. But when you're a young kid, and all you have is that your vision and your idea and your intellect, and you don't necessarily have maybe those networks and all of those things, it really is quite different. So I think going through all of that, and then learning the different things that I learned, again, because my background, I started out, I love research, I love data. So constantly shifting between sort of that macro view and then the granular view of the different experiences that I was having, I just realized that there was no way I could look at a deal the same way that other people looked at deals, because I was really considering other things. And there used to be a joke at We Capital, because people would be really excited about the deal, and then they're like, have you shown it to the deal killer? Um, and it was because I would just kind of raise a bunch of points about, the ecosystem and like whether there was actually a market, and just looking at it from a slightly different angle, because sometimes in VC you get caught up in a lot of things. You get caught up in how exciting the team is, how exciting the technology is, and you almost forget, okay, but like, is there a market, right? Like, who's going to be the buyer of this thing? Will this company have legs? And especially if you think about the makeup of your average fund, which is young, bright, but really young people, many of whom are coming straight from, finance roles into investing. So they've never actually built businesses. They've never actually, they've not done enough to be able to really think about how macros translate into like, just like practical experiences. So it became a kind of, I guess, boon for me, because folks would come to me just for my perspective, both in terms of data, but also my instincts around some of these opportunities. And I think some of it is also luck up. Absolutely. I don't think I'm like an excellent deal picker or anything, but I think that I just had a knack around thinking intentionally about whether there was an opportunity, but also critically not wasting founders' time. Because I think that sometimes also that's something that was happening a lot, where you had a sense that the deal was not going to go through, but there was a need to kind of go through the motion. And I think I also I earned a lot of credit for not being that person who would waste the founder's time and would just, sort of say it straight that, I don't see how we're going to make this work for A, B, C, D reasons. And so we might not be the fit for you. There might be somebody else for whom this is a fit.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and a shame about the nickname, the deal killer. But I can understand why they leveraged your insights there. But I think similarly, Emmy, you have founded several companies, and you also share that perspective and apply it to your investing. So interesting to see if some of the mindset shifts you've had or through that process align with what Kirsten's saying, or is there any other key elements that you feel your perspective has changed as you've gone through the process?
Well, change not necessarily, but I really, really, really focus on the founder. A founder, I'm saying I'm not 100% in agreement with everybody who says you have to have more founders. I mean, that's in my view, it's sometimes the case, sometimes not. And these days, VCs really focus on you have to have a co-founder. Well, I know people that started a company and then they pick a co-founder that comes from Deloitte, and it's like, okay, there's a co-founder, and I'm like, what? There's a complete difference, disbalance in input, in passion. Very often, I feel a difference in passion between a founder that then picks a co-founder. I'm just not. Maybe I have bad experiences in that, but I think the founder, the person that has the dream, the person that really has had the pain, it's very, very cliche, but if you have lived the pain and you know that this needs to be solved, I think that is the most important thing. And, of course, what is also very important for me in a founder is that you are teachable, because so we do only 2 investments a year, which is very luxurious because you don't have to invest in anybody. So you can say no quite a few times. But if you really think this idea is great, the founder is great, but he's also teachable, he's also listening, and he doesn't have to make the mistakes that I already made, So that for me are very, very important ones. And then obviously, what's the problem that somebody's solving? There are so many problems that I'm not really, very excited about. It's just not giving positive impact in the world. And we're all talking about impact, but for me, that is a driver. And if there's no serious impact, just is a no-go. The other side of the coin, which is a bit difficult, is that I'm very interested in many, many, many things. Like yesterday, I was talking to this brilliant founder, brilliant guy, about an app they have for medical interviews. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is great. Amazing stuff, amazing company. They already have a very good founder, the perfect investor on board. But the guy is so smart, he doesn't need me. I really believe he doesn't need me. So I will not be the second investor because A, he's got the best investor ever. B, yeah, it goes well. So instead of picking a potential unicorn, which for me in Africa, I don't know, I find that pretty pointless. It's really, what can I add to the equation? How can we, as a small company, add value, not just the money, but then really add value, make it possible to scale faster, and make it possible to really focus, maybe help pivot, because like I've never seen a business plan in my life that actually was carried out the way it was written. So the pivoting thing, it's just essential.
Yeah, and I think that understanding is part of what helps to make those decisions. And I think in both your cases, the ability to empathize, understand that the founder side, and I think from both of what you're saying, that founder focus, the respect for the founder is something that is actually paid back when you give that deep understanding of what they're going through. They are also able to maybe if they, in a situation where they need to deliver to you, they also, because you give them the respect, are able to give that back to yourself. So really interesting there. And I think what you're highlighting as well is you said bad experience with co-founders, but I think again that highlights the benefit and value that you can get from switching lanes, in the sense that you have a better understanding that a forced co-founder is, on paper, two co-founders is better, but forcing a co-founder maybe is not the right way to go. I don't know, Kirsten, have you seen any examples or cases of that through your experience, where there's been a key element that, Sorry, don't know. Kirsten, can you hear me? Did you get that?
No, in fact, I wasn't sure if I think I was speaking on mute. I was saying I didn't quite get that.
Sorry. No worries. I was just basically saying, has there been any other cases or examples, similarly, where, the benefit of being a founder first gave the insight to, yes, on paper, two founders or more co-founders is better. However, forcing that situation can lead to adverse
Mhm.
effects, and having that founder perspective where yourself trying to find a co-founder, it's needs to be someone who's as excited and engaged with the project as you are. But any other cases or examples that maybe through your experience?
Yeah. So, this whole sort of like multi-founder formula is about risk management, right? That's where it comes from. It's not arbitrary, right? So the idea is that if something happens to a founder, if a founder has a change of heart or whatever, if there are multiple co-founders, then there's lower risk to the company. So it does come from a good place. But I do agree with Emmy that what I think has very often happened then is that people feel this pressure because most VCs will not even look at solo founded companies seriously. I think it has created a pressure where you do have misfit situations. And so I think even just coming from my own experience building, and in fact, the person that I started my company with, we actually ended up, splitting, so we're no longer co-founders, but she's still one of my best friends. But that was a very painful process to go through, and there was a lot of respect and love there, right? And but we could do that because we've been friends, for more than half our lives. Much harder to do when somebody you don't know the person really well, or you've just come together for this explicit purpose, and you because you wanted to raise capital, you wanted to do XYZ. So I completely agree, but I don't even know that that wisdom necessarily comes from being a founder myself. I think it just comes from paying attention to interpersonal relationship value. And I think that also for sometimes for some VCs, there's almost like, especially if it's like an analyst, right? So if you think about the way the funnel works, right? Maybe it's just an analyst looking at a bunch of decks and saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So I think sometimes for that reason, folks might miss out on thinking about what brings these two people together, and is there enough holding them together that they and so I think that that's where some of those challenges do come in, and it happens a lot. I mean, I think what a lot of people don't realize is how much co-founder conflict actually costs us
Exactly.
and costs our
Yeah.
ecosystem, because it's
Exactly.
not often talked about. It's not, the flashier stories are the mismanagement of capital and all of that, but actually co-founder conflict is a really big factor. Lots and lots of beautiful, incredible, promising companies have fallen by the wayside as a result.
Yeah, and
Awesome. I
I
think
must say, last year I had a situation where I had to, replace the CEO of a company with another employee that was clearly so much better. It was the co-founder was clearly so 100 times better, and it's a sad and difficult situation. And some people are just very good at getting an idea, and then somebody else can carry it out, or you know, you have all these different situations, and I really think it would. I understand that it's risk mitigation, I really do, but in the end, you also add a risk. So that's my personal view, and really quickly going, oh, I was in this cohort with so and so, and let's join forces and be together. It's a different story than for you, Kirsten, where you did it with your best friend, you know, that's or one of your best friends, and that's so much less risky, and still it didn't go right. See, so
Yeah.
it's still it's an issue.
Yeah, I think definitely key. There's risk on both sides. Even couples get a bad rap sometimes when you have married couples as founders, and yeah, I think a really interesting that you highlight that co-founder conflict. Maybe I think I see that as maybe a blind spot that we have for some of the investors out there. But do you think there's any other examples of blind spots that current investors maybe are overlooking due to a lack of empathy or a lack of understanding from the other side of the table?
You're asking this, who's
Yeah, I think for me, the one that go ahead, Emmy. Oh, okay. No, so what I was just gonna say, I think a big one that it is not talked about enough is actually founder market fit. And so we always talk about sort of like, problem and, product market fit and all of these things. But sometimes the team, great as it is, actually doesn't have substantial enough context around the market and understanding of the market behavior and the market dynamics to be able to build a successful company, right? So yes, they're brilliant. Yes, they have a great idea. Maybe it's even a cool product, but do you have the depth of relationships? I think one of the things that I learned from building a business is that it really, especially in those early days, is all about the relationships. It's all about the doors that you are able to get open, the rooms that you're able to get into. And so if you don't have that depth of experience in that market, that depth of network in that market, it's really, really important, right? Or leverage to be able to get in some of those rooms and so on and so forth. So I think for me, it's a very, very often overlooked element of analysis that I do think should be like more attention to be paid to that.
Yeah, maybe I can
Yeah,
add something. I really agree, but what I also find is that there is the role where an angel investor can really play his best role, and you shouldn't be in a game where you don't have the network. So if I look at what the companies where I have invested in, they're only in a space where I do have the connections and where I can open the doors. Because frankly, I have more relationships probably than a 23-year-old. While that person can be more brilliant than me, much more brilliant, but I can easily open a door. And that is just so key. It's so difficult sometimes to get to get the correct client on the line or whatever in the marketplace. So I think that if people are looking for angels or looking for for VCs, what is the network they're bringing? How, are they willing to open their network to you? Are they willing to take your hand and go down that path and maybe go to clients? Because I mean, I find it still very fun to go to clients with my companies, but sometimes have that look, and it's so easy to say, okay, this person is going to write me check. That's it. Thank you very much. And certainly that's very, very tempting, and I totally understand. But if you can, just be a little bit more critical and really find the person that's in that market and that has access.
yeah, I think that value addition that's sometimes not tangible or monetary can really define the success. And I think also interesting that you have a perspective where you've seen as you mentioned, there was when you were starting out, not necessarily a formal ecosystem, much less than what we have now. So you've seen really this ecosystem take shape. So wondering maybe if you could wave a magic wand and you could maybe change one part or change a challenge, an experience within the ecosystem that you see, and maybe with your perspective could be different. What would that be?
That should improve right now. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so like if you could change, yeah, something that you see now that's a really a big
Okay, I'll
barrier
give you an
or
example.
challenge.
It's not something in the ecosystem that needs to change, but here in the Netherlands, there's something that's called super connectors, and we want to put that also
Mm,
bring it to Cape Town, because that is actually a sort of pitching competition, but it's not to get money. It's to get a critical ask, and it's actually a game. It's hilarious. I was happy to win last time. That's why I'm also bringing it forward. But it's really just doing this, having all these founders do their pitch, and then say, "We want to get into the PIC. We want to
mm,
get into this hospital. We want to," and then actually you have to push a button very quickly. And then if you have done, you've made the most connection, you win, and it's hilarious. And I really think we should do it in November. I'm really working with Stellenbosch University right now to get it done, because again, getting if you have a cancer solution or you have a solution with somebody I spoke to yesterday, a medical application, getting into a certain hospital might be much better than getting the investment. Getting a big client before you have to open up your cap table might be just essential. So we do focus on two things. You want to get venture capital, you have to have investors, obviously. But if you can just get some revenue and get into that big company before you
mm.
have to get the investment, that is excellent. So that's just, I'll put it in the chat, but it's a hilarious game.
No, I love it. And I think it speaks to the point earlier from Kirsten about relationships. I think, part of the value is those relationships, those connections that can really, change the trajectory of a company without the monetary side. But maybe over to you then, Kirsten, if you could make a bold move, or maybe even better, if you think there is leaders or ecosystem leaders out there that should be making bolder moves, what move should that be?
Yeah, I think for me, and I mean, I'm by no means the first to say this, but I think that today what the ecosystem on the continent needs is actually more H&I participation. There are folks who have spent, the past few decades building successful, scaled Pan-African, even global businesses, but their participation in the startup ecosystem is down to a few sort of like pony prizes, and it's just not substantial enough to be perfectly transparent. And for me, it's just all that lost wisdom, and it makes no sense to me. I think that HNIs need to be way more involved, particularly as angels, so that there's that transfer of knowledge, there's that transfer of experience, that transfer of networks, particularly also for just increasing equity, right? Our societies are already so like unequal for historic reasons, and I think that the technology ecosystem done right can actually be a pretty democratizing force, right? But we still have a situation where participation from HNIs, participation from experienced business leaders is really, really minimal and limited to the immediate networks and family. And that's really my big wish, is the thing that if I could wave a wand or snap my finger, I would love to make happen.
I couldn't agree more. And what you see is that a lot of the capitals here, for instance, in Amsterdam and London and whatever, safely tucked away. And all the opportunities on the continent, maybe some families or whatever do 1 or 2%, and the impact that it would make. But also, it's just a huge opportunity. So, the stock market is also not necessarily completely safe. So I'm a big proponent of re-risking capital. So, take a risk again. Come on, people. And yeah, it's also very sad that a lot of the money is also yeah, in Europe or on Wall Street or whatever. And then it doesn't even bring taxes. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm a big proponent of paying taxes on the African continent, because things have to happen. I mean, roads need to be built, hospitals need to be, need to be managed. People need to be there. So yeah, I think that is one of my big frustrations, that you see people just not willing to invest in their own home. Yeah.
Yeah, I think important point. I think that you raised there, and critical for the future. And I think part of ACE's theme this year is having uh, a lasting ecosystem, lasting impact that we have. Sustainability. And I think to your point, more effort needs to be going back into that, not just money, as you say, but also knowledge transfer. I think super important, and maybe something we can, as an ecosystem, focus more on and provide those opportunities, even if it's not through direct angel investment, but that knowledge share. I think super key. And I I see the benefits for both sides, actually. I think some of your experience as funders also makes you better entrepreneurs. And I know that both being founders and investors, interesting to know if you see it as a two-way door, as Jeff Bezos coined, or a one-way door, in the sense that, do you see it as a fluid motion, jumping back and forth from being an investor, being a founder? Like, I think it's almost a similar appetite that we have on both sides. You kind of either hate it or love it, this ecosystem. So yeah, interesting to hear. I mean, Emmy, yourself, with 7 businesses, I'm assuming some of those were back and forth.
We're setting up a new business as we speak, and I
There you
just
go.
love it. I really like it. This is actually South African technology that we take worldwide right now.
Mm.
It's plastic to diesel, small scale thing. It can be amazing. It's already making impact in the literal environment, but yeah, so I just love setting up a company. I have a co-founder who's actually was my intern. He's 25, and he's actually the one who does a lot of the work. But there's nothing more fun than setting up a company. And I love to co-invest and I love to be an angel, but there's nothing more fun than setting up a company.
Do you echo that, Kirsten?
Yeah, no. So I think for me, I don't even I mean, even though I do manage a fund, I don't see my primary identity as a fund manager. And I expect to continue to do different things and evolve
Mhm.
with the ecosystem. I still actively angel invest and support companies, and I think to me, it's really just about doing what's needed when I'm able to do so.
Yeah, I know, and I think there's a draw on both sides, and as you gain experience on either, you're able to apply that learnings and that value on both sides, and maybe then looking at our audience, many of us looking either at making the jump, already transitioning, or thinking about taking a leap. What kind of advice, I mean, I think from both of you, would you be giving someone who's considering making the jump, and now maybe they're looking to exit their startup and start investing, or vice versa? Any thoughts, any advice that you could give on that matter?
Well, unfortunately, in Africa, the crowdfunding system is not very well developed. What you see here in Europe it is a very well developed system. So I'm now crowdfunding for a company, 500,000 euros. I think we can do it in 6 weeks. No problem. So if you start there, you can really start looking at companies. Am I interested or not? I'm really going to look through their whole deck or whatever. And, you spend 1,000 or $5,000 or euros. And yeah, if that doesn't work, you have learned a valuable lesson. And I really wish there would be a better developed system for Africa, because in Africa, very often the companies, if they could start with like 50,000 or 100,000 euros, they could go a lot further. And often it's also not equity. So you're not messing up your cap table. You're just, getting a loan, and people say, okay, we like it, we enjoy it, but you never have a fight as you have with your investor, because yeah, you don't lose a whole lot of money. So who's going to really go, to court or whatever over 1,000 euros? That's not going to happen. So actually, it's such a nice way to start into investing and then go a little bit bigger, go angel investor. And yeah, it's risky, but take the time, look at everything, really take the time with the founders, really sit down, have a beer, have coffees, and then you jump. And I think if you really take that time and you empathize with the person, and also you get the market, go and jump.
Yeah, I think start now, really key. I think also for founders, but even if you're thinking about it, really important to just dip your toe. And I think fundraising, for crowdfunding platforms are improving. I think just sharing that there's a few in Cape Town, but there needs to be more of that facility across the continent. And what about yourself, Kirsten? I mean, if you were speaking to a younger version of yourself, first making the move, or someone thinking about it today, what kind of advice would you give?
I think for me it's really just to avoid main character syndrome thinking, and really just so I think sometimes we make our journey a little bit harder because we think we have to reinvent the wheel. We think it's never been done before, but there's so much wisdom, and there's so many people ahead of us. So I think if you can just set aside the ego, set aside the main character sort of protagonist persona, and really think about, well, okay, what can I learn? Where can I add value? Where can I do better, do more? I think that you are actually able to galvanize people, together, who can actually help you with that transition, help you move forward. I found that fellowships for me were a really great way to just build a network. There's lots of people that feel that they have to kind of like brave it by themselves and all of that. But I actually think if you can get into a very good fellowship, or if you can get into a very good program, or even just go spend some time at your, successful uncle's company, being his EA for a little bit, but like go and sit at people's feet, go and learn from people, go and learn with people. I just think it makes the journey easier than trying to sort of be a lone ranger. And it's the same advice I would really give myself, just looking back.
Amazing. And thanks for that. I know we are approaching the end of the call, so I wanted to give some space and maybe open it up to our audience today, and see if anyone has any questions. Again, please feel free to raise your hands or sound off in the chat. I see, you had a few mentions. Someone raising their hand. Please go. Hi. Okay, so we have one question coming in, and it's really about asking, when do you think, with your added context and knowledge, when is the right time to raise startup funds as a company? And I know that's a bit nuanced, but in general, what are you seeing as a good time to start raising funds?
My very unnuanced answer is the later the better, but it's very unnuanced. But if you can bootstrap it, if you can take it along a little bit further, I mean, obviously for the valuation, but also don't spend your day. Fundraising can be a day job. It's going to be really, really hard and a lot of work. So get your company together first, really make it work. And then, we take it. That if you have to, I mean, of course, it takes a long time. It's not that you can raise that in 10 minutes. Obviously, you have to take some months of your runway. But yeah, the later the better is my view.
Yeah, I like that as a principle. And what about yourself, Kirsten? Any thoughts?
No, I completely agree with the bootstrapping principles, but around cash. But I will say, and it's again related to the point that I was making around, doesn't mean you have to go it alone, right? You can still ask for advice, you can still run experiments. And just generally, I think something that I see less and less of with founders is them actually getting out of the house. There's just a lot of keyboard entrepreneurship happening right now. And I don't, particularly on the continent, I just don't think that our digital infrastructure is developed enough for like keyboard entrepreneurship to kind of get you really far. So just get out of the house, right? Go meet people, go do things, go test your ideas. I think for me, that's a really critical thing.
Yeah, I fully agree on that one. But thanks for the question. Anybody else? Any questions? Please raise your hand. Oh, I think Yao, do you wanting to ask a question?
So I can't seem to find my raise my hand thing. So it's not just you, Emmy. But Emmy, ladies, you've done a great job as well as you, Jason. But I'm with you. Like they're raising funds. A lot of founders want to raise a series A, B, C, and D. I'm like, it's cool if you need it, but why? Maybe, as Emmy said earlier, get an extra client. You get an extra client, you might not need the funding that you think you need, right? As opposed to always chasing a raise, because what you do is you sell off your company, you sell, then you become an employee. And then that over time, that's what ends up happening, unfortunately. But I mean, like that's all part of the series that we have here a conversation about, in that we just need to see different ways of actually finding methodologies that actually work for us as an entire continent in different nuances, different little locations, because what happens in Silicon Valley and in Europe may not be applicable to us. So we just perhaps need to reinvent how we do things and chase the unicorns. Why? What is wrong with having a normal business that makes lots of money, hires people, and is able to pay a dividend and you smile and everybody just carries on, making a little bit here and there? What's a unicorn? Sometimes only the founders make money and then off they go. The rest of us, we get a new shareholder, probably private equity, that chop jobs, and then we're back to square zero. We just need to create employment. I get excited about this, so I'm going to stop preaching. I'm off. Bye-bye.
No, I love it. Yeah, I think so true. And I think really this capital efficiency that African startups kind of have to be very, capital efficient. They have to use their money, and there's also, unfortunately, a bit of a stigma or shame associated with bootstrapping in the industry, where how well you're doing can sometimes be seen about how much are you raising. Congratulations, you're doing your Series A. That's a marker in your journey where we don't actually maybe celebrate sometimes when someone's been able to bootstrap it, or we don't highlight it. So yeah, really interesting, and I think there's huge value there. I know we are out of time, but maybe if there's any questions, please feel free to jump in. But
Can I just say
while
one
we,
thing, Jason?
yes,
Sorry.
please, yeah,
What
of
I
course.
really find very interesting and necessary is that founders need to share their pain. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed that you can't afford to go on holiday. Don't be ashamed that you can't afford sometimes to put the gas into your machine. We've all been there. And if you haven't been there, you probably will be there. So don't be ashamed. Share the shame of having no work-life balance, because that also, we many of us have been there. So let's just, be very honest about this and talk. It's not shameful. It's just what it is. It's totally fine to just share this, and especially if you're having angel investors or whatever, come clean and say, hey, can you help me, because I'm just done. I can't do it anymore. We've all been there.
So true. And of course, we've actually got one more question. So maybe before your closing words, we'll give Wisdom's question here in the chat. It was really actually focusing on exits in the thinking behind this as a founder and also as a funder. When do you see is the best time to exit, and what would the options be on the continent with a lack of patient capital or some of the other benefits from other ecosystems? Yeah, maybe
I
Kirsten,
think
I'll throw that one
I
to
think all
you.
I'll say about that is that I think, yeah. So what I was saying is that I think it's really important to take a macro view of the ecosystem. And I think that sometimes we are so sort of zoomed in on, the bad moment, that we're not actually seeing that, net there is progress, net the ecosystem is improving, net we're seeing more mergers, more acquisitions, we're seeing more wisdom, we are seeing more exits at secondaries as well. And so there's just a process, right? And you actually, if you try to cut corners, or I know we love to pat ourselves on the back on the continent for leapfrogging things, but I do think that some things just have to be done well. And so a little bit of patience, a little bit of a sort of like bird's eye longitudinal data driven view is less grim, right? It really is less grim, and I think that's important.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And maybe Kirsten, any final words on the topic as we close the call? Any thoughts, any closing thoughts from yourself?
Um, I think my big thing is less skepticism. I think everyone is so cynical these days, the investors, the founders, so the founders are just trying to, their travel visa or whatever their, but like there's too much cynicism. And I think it really hurts us, in the long run. So just more hope, and, more genuine and earnest, effort. There's important things to build in the world. And I really do think that, really earnestly doing that can make a difference.
Yeah, and I think so true. And by nature, we have to be somewhat optimistic, or we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. So keeping that optimism is super important. Maybe to yourself, Emmy, any final closing words and thoughts?
I would say pay it forward. Never be stingy with your contacts. Never be stingy with your time. Try to, I mean, of course, you have to, I mean, we all have too little time, but try to pay it forward. Try to think of when you were there. And also for the founders, yeah, just uh, be bold. Go and ask. Somebody can always say no, just go ask. And we
Love
have
it.
to pay it forward.
Yeah, I really agree with that and resonate with it. I think you also speak about that relationships and empathy, and I think from today's discussion, something for myself personally, taking away that empathy holds core, and some of the value that we have is our ability to have different perspectives as we transition in and out. So I think really important for the growth of our ecosystem for us to encourage and share both. Within the investment ecosystems, the founders, and crossing over with more sharing with both sides. So, really, thank you all for today's conversation. A big thank you to yourself, Kirsten and Emmy, for your perspectives and your sharing. And on behalf of ACES, really, really great. And on behalf of ABAN and BC4A, a great thank you to everyone. And maybe before we close off the final call, I'll hand over to June for any closing words and a reminder to scan and register for your early bird tickets. Over to you, June.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Christine, and thank you, Amy, for such an insightful conversation. And this is just a tip of what is in store for those ones who will be joining us in Cape Town. And yeah, I have seen Yao has been sharing the link to the registration, and also you can scan our codes to just secure your tickets. And yeah, we will be in the Atlantic sipping wine. And why not? You should be there. You should be there. So we'll be very happy to have you join us this year for ACES 2025 as we open the Investor Week. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.